taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week.
This is Augmented Reality,
presented by the Triple S League.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry for January 29th, 2020. This is the Wednesday edition of the show. My name is Ash. I'm here as always with Cybsidian. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Not bad. Throat's a little scratchy, but I should get through. Woke up a little sick, but not sick enough to miss out on my favorite part of the week, which is doing this podcast. So if you're listening live today, please say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. And don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. And if you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well. Appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us a bit of time to get the streams up to the audio platforms. So, if you want the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit that link in the description to subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. Hello, everybody in the chat. Hello, David Jackson. Max Darrett's in the house, saying, "Hey guys, can't watch for too long because I have to get back to work. Just wanted to say hello." Well, welcome, Max. Sorry you can't stay for too long, but it's good to see you. Trikiran, Cookie Ocklate, Terror K, Tuomo, Rob Jones. We've got Robin and Somnolence and Cynical Nolok. Welcome, everybody. So glad you're here. So we got a number of things to talk about today. So we've got Cyberpunk is going to, CDPR going to Taipei. Oh, for heaven's sake! I practiced the pronunciation before I started here. Well, the problem is that silly. You remember back on Windows Windows 3.1, the entertainment pack. They had that game called Taipei, and I always called it Taipei. So it goes back to my childhood. It's ingrained to pronounce it wrong. Anyway, I'm going to do my best to do better at that. So. CDPR is going to the Taipei Gaming Show, or the Taipei Game Show, bringing Cyberpunk 2077 there. Cyberpunk 2077 is getting pretty big in China, and that's very cool on the one hand, but there's also some concerns about that. China is very notorious for its censorship and its rules about video games, and so the question becomes, are they going to censor the game? Are they going to... are there going to be problems there? And there's also been examples of, game censorship that is required for China bleeding over into the rest of the world. So, Cyb, I am going to let you take over from here for a sec while I just duck out and deal with some noise that's happening in the background.
All right, so... basically, we've got a very interesting situation building here, because what we typically have is a government that really likes to censor things and really likes to keep things under a particular thumb, so to speak, and that there's a significant amount of games that don't even get to the market, let alone get to have their unedited game come out. And this is kind of, this is kind of normal. So it's like, it's kind of like an interesting situation. So with the Taipei show coming up, which there may or may not be some info dropping at. Right now, there was a leak, but then the leak was kind of put down, and then it was retracted, but then there's another leak that started up, and it's all saying that there's going to be something new there. This is a good opportunity for them to put something out new, so I'm not surprised with that, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a rehash of other stuff that they've already put out. So, it's kind of one of those weird situations where it's like we don't really know what to expect at this currently as it's going out. So and I don't want to confirm anything and get any hopes up, based off of the leaks that we've seen, because the leaks are kind of like meh, right? So so that's kind of lays the groundwork of
Now,
why we're covering this today.
didn't CD Projekt come out and say no, there wouldn't be anything new, like no new content, although they'll be doing a new presentation of it, but they won't be showing anything that we haven't already seen.
Which is I mean, if they we've been over this before. If they were going to release something new, this would be their response. If they weren't going to release something new, this would also be their response. So
So we can't go based on that entirely.
we can't go based off of what they say. If they say, "Oh yeah, we're going to be showing just regular stuff," and then they come out with something new, or they come out with something that to them they don't necessarily think it is, but to everybody else it is. That's, again, this is one of these scenarios where it's like okay, which do we believe, right? Like,
Why wouldn't they tell us if they were planning something big? Like, why would? I mean, I know they like to surprise us.
why would they go out of their way to like try
Why
and
would they
squash
hide
the
that?
rumor?
Like, why would they not want to hype it up?
Well, they have been getting a little bit more sensitive about leaks and info getting out and that kind of stuff. So it's obviously there's a how do you say this? There's a desire for them to be able to retain a little bit more control over what's getting out, and they're more annoyed with the leaks and stuff like that than they typically have been. They're trying to like get on them because they really want to control the messaging here, and we understand that, which is why we haven't been like leaking like a sieve, because they've been requesting that we not. So not just us, like a lot of people, but naturally this means that the other like more wild speculations start to come out. So it's this question of like, you need to be dropping some information constantly to prevent that kind of a thing from taking place, because if you don't put out anything for like a month, people are going to just start speculating like crazy. Like, people
Right.
will speculate off of any information, but at least when you're putting out the information, when you're leaking selectively, or when you're allowing certain selective leaks to drop, that way you can control the message. Whereas it's very difficult to do, extremely difficult to do when you're not doing that. So yeah, so this is one of these scenarios where it's like, okay, yeah, we kind of get we kind of get the general like plan and desire of the company, but at the same time it's like, it's the what people want versus what people will do, and it's not to say that there's like disunity or angst coming back and forth. It's just that this is the game you play when you're a big developer, and this is the game that you play when you're a journalist. This is a game that you play in general. Like, this just happens, right?
Yeah. Okay,
So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
So, Taipei Game Show starts a week from tomorrow, next Thursday, and of course we'll be on top of any info that comes out of that. In advance of that, CD Projekt put out a video called the Cyberpunk 2077 Lunar New Year Special. You had a couple of a whole bunch of CD Projekt personalities, a couple of them speaking rather fluent Mandarin. It was impressive to see. I'm assuming it was fluent. I don't understand Mandarin, so I couldn't tell you the fluency of it or not. But it was, Marcy Nowitzki speaking Mandarin, and then they had another lady who's part of the localization team. But then there was a number of segments in English as well, just with Chinese subtitles. So this was for this was a video created for their Chinese audience, presumably for the Taipei game show. Now, they put it up on Twitter, and then somebody else released it on YouTube. You can check it out if you want. They talked a lot about the localization in the game, how they want, in each language, they want it to sound like it was made for that language. So they're really putting a lot of emphasis and focus on localization. But it's really interesting that they are, first of all, going to China. Now, Taipei and Taiwan is kind of in a the politics of these different parts of China are very confusing, and I won't pretend to understand it. But it's not part of the the big People's Republic, I guess. It's kind of got its own thing going on, but it's also kind of part of China. Maybe somebody else can explain how that all works. But anyway, China, of course, is very well known for its censorship. It's got very heavy restrictions on video games. And Cyberpunk 2077 is definitely not going to fit, I don't think, the Chinese government's definition of a morally okay video game. But it's gaining a lot of popularity over there. In June of 2019, it was reported that Cyberpunk 2077 had become the number one wish-listed game on the Chinese version of Steam, and it actually dethroned Total War 3 Kingdoms as the top wish-listed game.
Yeah.
And Total War 3 Kingdoms is another game we're going to talk a little bit about in a minute. But so how is this going to work? And also, are we going to get was it Rainbow Six Siege that had the Chinese censorship went worldwide?
There's been a lot of games that have had censorship.
Yeah, so we've had examples of games where, in order to fit the Chinese content rules, game developers have just kind of they've implemented changes worldwide rather than just having a version of the game specific to China. They just implemented, the worldwide. They took out gambling machines or something like that. So how is this going to work with Cyberpunk? There's a lot of concern about this.
Yeah, so I've reached out to some friends, and I heard back. Now, because of all this whole thing with leaks and whatnot, I'm actually going to explain this one because nobody's going to get in trouble for this one, for the most part. I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to describe to you the connection. So the connection here is that I have a close friend in Japan who works very closely with appealing to the Chinese censorship board. So they have games that they want to release in China. They go through a third party to appeal to find out what kind of games, how can they be released, et cetera, et cetera. So this is and I want to make this clear because this is not a connection at CDPR. And just because there's been a lot of concern about that, there's been a number of leaks recently. I just wanted to go out of my way to explain, no, in this case, I did not get this from CDPR because there's somebody from CDPR who's been listening, and several people from CDPR that have been listening, and more than one of them has expressed concerns about leaks. So this is not a leak from your company. This is a leak from a third party who doesn't even work with CDPR, doesn't even work with Western game markets. They work within Japan to get games approved for the Chinese market. So they're kind of an advisor / consultant that deals with that. So speaking with them, they were having a recent conversation with somebody from the Chinese side of things, and they were out having a good time, and they were talking about some upcoming games. So this person has given me the lowdown on how Cyberpunk is perceived, as well as a number of other Western games that are coming out, but especially how Cyberpunk is being received in China. So I'm gonna give you guys the basically the sum up of what the four major things that are working towards CDPR and Cyberpunk 2077 as far as this goes. This is a 4 bullet points that almost 5, but 4 bullet points as to why the game is going to suffer minimal difficulty in getting their game labeled there. There is the only major problem as of right now is going to be the intense gore and the intense people getting exploded, and the sexual content, so the nudity and the sex. So those two things are still likely to be censored, but those two things will most likely be censored just by removing the human exploding thing on the perspective of the gunplay, and removing excess amount of blood from when you do shoot people. They'll just usually just ragdoll and fall over. This is pretty normal. Some countries they have that. They treat that a lot higher. And I'm not a fan of censorship in general, but this I do kind of understand. And if you really want that to come back, there's ways that you can mod it, right? So I'm not necessarily like, I understand it's like you'd rather have it get out than not have it get out. So I do understand certain things as to that regard, because you can usually mod it out. And people who want that in the game, they'll find a way to add that into the game. So again, not a fan of censorship, but I do understand this issue, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff and how it can be addressed and how it can be fixed. So for the most part, don't agree with it, but kind of get that. The sex stuff and the nudity that's going to be in the game, again, it's probably going to be severely censored. But again, it's just kind of like they just add some blur patches basically to the skin and you're fine-ish.
Now, is this,
right?
Are we looking at an option where they're going to create like a version of the game that is censored for China and maybe other markets?
Sometimes it's the publisher who does that. They just go into the code and they tweak it out a little bit. We know that they have a different publisher for the Asian markets than they do for the Western markets. And again, with the nudity thing, like, again, I can kind of understand that. I'm not a fan of it at all. I think art should be, art should be art, and that the grittiness of it is, it is showing that bad side of the cyberpunk dystopia, where it's, that's part of the problem, that things aren't really sacred anymore. So you can't really.
Yeah.
It's like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's like, this is the bad guy. Why is he the bad guy? Oh, because he showed up and he threw a stink bomb at the mayor. It's like, oh, that's bad. Why are we chasing them down with weaponry in this case? I'm thinking of this particular case. I'm thinking of like G.I. Joe, right? They made G.I. Joe look like this like Saturday morning villain, where like cartoon villain, where it's like, haha, get me next time. And it's like nobody throws a punch, right? Like nobody gets killed or anything like that. And so there's this really like kind of bizarre, like, why are we fighting? Because it seems to me like, this is just a bunch of like clowns going back and forth, and meanwhile disrupting the lives of everyday people. So if you take away the grittiness of this game, I think you're left with a substandard product, which is why I don't agree with censorship. Obviously you want to censor what kids see, because a 5-year-old kid doesn't need to see somebody exploding or somebody doing some sexual content in their games. Obviously not there. Like, that needs to be limited for their sake, because that's something that parents should be filling in.
That's a question. Yeah, that comes down to that question of parental control. But bottom line, like, are we looking? Is there going to be a separate version? We don't know.
No. This is what we're getting at. We don't know what form, or again, who is going to be doing the censoring. Is it going to be CDPR? Is it not going to? Are they going to have such a favorable rating that they're just going to come in and be like, yeah, whatever? This has happened before. This has happened with certain movies before. Some movies, they'll censor the absolute, everything out of it until you take a 2-hour movie and they cut it down to a 45-minute movie. It's ridiculous, some of the censorship that happens here. Then you have other movies that are shown in China that get no censorship at all, which is really bizarre. Like V for Vendetta was shown in China, no censorship, which is really weird, because it's against an authoritarian regime that doesn't have a second party that keeps them accountable for what they're doing. It's like, you would have thought that would have been censored or not allowed at all. But for some reason, whatever the reason was, it was allowed to be played in its entirety with minimal alteration, even in the subtitling. So that, again, that to most people is like, that's a bit strange. So in this case, we don't know whether like Bandai Namco is going to be the ones that are who's the publisher for the area, is going to be censoring this, or if the censoring is going to come down to CDPR to tweak, or if they won't have any censoring at all. We don't know that, and my source isn't commenting on that because right now they're only giving me the information that is what this one representative, just a single representative within the Chinese authority, and they're by no means a top member. This is just one of the one of the many people that are involved in it, and this is their thought on it. So these are their thoughts. Bullet point 1 through 4. The game, number 1, shows the evils of American capitalism. Right. So apparently, if you want a game to do well in China, just show the evils of capitalism, and you will get an immediately gold star rating because of that. I find this hilarious, but not surprising. Again, this is something that yeah, it makes their competitors look bad, right? It helps to influence the culture to say bad corporatism, and so therefore this is actually a plus in the game's case of getting approved in China. Number 2, Hong Kong is desolated and no humans are alive in Hong Kong, and that the reason that nobody has the reason. So in the game's lore, Hong Kong had a technological type virus that showed up that basically killed all organic material and pretty much became a digital ghost world. And in both the real world, the physical world, and the digital world, the place has literally been walled off.
If you want more on that, check out our video we did on Cyberpunk Red lore from 2020 to 2045, I believe it was. It was good. We hired an actress to do the narration for that one. You know, we wrote we wrote sort of a plausible narrative of a character living through this period, and it turned out really well. But check that out. It's one of our Unpacking Cyberpunk Red series. It's actually, I believe it's the feature video on our front page right now. If you just go to the front page of our YouTube channel, but I recommend checking that out. And it goes in depth into the new lore that's been revealed through Cyberpunk Red. But yeah, so Hong Kong.
So Hong Kong is
Hong Kong's a ghost town, quite literally, and the Chinese government likes this. Okay.
The Chinese government especially likes the fact that in the game world, it was because of the Chinese government and their quick acting ability to gather together and to build a physical wall around Hong Kong that saved them essentially and everything essentially from getting it out. Whenever you portray the Chinese government in a very positive light, especially touting their amazing capability at being able to be builders and creators of something and quick decisive action from supreme leaders and their glorious ability to react to dangerous situations, this will also gain you much favor in the eyes of the Central Party. So this second thing, huge bonus. So this is 2 bonuses so far, very positive. They have no problem with the lore at this point. They have very little problem with the setting of the game. It's for the most part being well received. Third one is that it's featuring Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves is very, very popular in China. I don't know if you've heard this, but Keanu Reeves is he's Chinese Hawaiian background, which of course in China, whenever he's talked about as being clearly Chinese descendant instead of Chinese Hawaiian. But yeah, he's Chinese Hawaiian, and therefore, despite the fact that he's done, he's an American actor, he's very well, he's very popularized. He also doesn't have a habit of speaking out against their censorship, and I need to really explain this one, so you got to listen here. Keanu Reeves is not somebody who kowtows to anybody, but in the case of Chinese censorship, in respect to his movies, they censor a lot of the blood and gore and violence that is in some of his movies. He has no problem with that because there is no rating system for movies in China, or there wasn't when his movies were really big, and therefore he sees it as okay for them to take these movies and change them over and tweak them considerably to make them more family friendly. So again, he's not saying that he agrees with political censorship or the ideological censorship that's going on. His reference is strictly only against the censorship that occurs in violence when the movies are played in public audiences or on public television. Because again, it's not like, up until recently, China hasn't had like Netflix and Hulu and HBO. They don't have different sign-up services. They have public television. And pretty much everybody gets access to public television. Yes, there's theaters where people go to see movies, but those are also mostly run by the government. So when they make movies or shows available for public consumption, chances are 99.99% of the time your audience is a family, not a mixed family of different ages, not limited to a single age group or grouping. So that's why there's more stuff, and that's why he's okay with that, because he doesn't believe that children should be watching gruesome violence anyways. So he has actually sided with the Chinese government in these cases, and this has led to the Chinese government showing him a lot more respect. And he's also a big oh dear, I forgot the name of the thing. He's a big proponent of the some of the martial arts that are based out of China, and it's the same one that the Chinese government supports as being very healthy and good for you. So there's again a lot of positive creation there. So if this game didn't have Keanu Reeves, if it had some other big name actor playing that role, it would be probably a little bit more difficult to get it in. But because this is a Keanu Reeves thing, the public and a lot of government officials are immediately going to have his back, so to speak. So again, third reason why that they are actively engaging in this, and why my contact says that his contact has said that the game is being viewed as very, very favorably at the moment, and of course this can change, and that for the moment it appears as if it's going to pass with flying colors and everybody's going to be happy about it. So number 4, this is a small bonus, but this is a bonus. This is not an American company. This is
CD Projekt is not an American.
CD Projekt Red is not an American company. They are a Polish company, and that is a good thing to them. China obviously wants to do trade with America, but when it comes to other things, this Polish company, it's not viewed as somebody that they've had difficulties or they're currently having difficulties with. So it's viewed simply as a, hey, cool. They're viewed as a little bit more favorably because of that, because it's not an American company, because it's not a Western company, so to speak. It comes out of Poland. So there's a little bit of mystique there. The Witcher games did very well in China, very, very well in China. And so they have this big base of popular support. It's one of these things that the Chinese will consume a fair amount of Polish culture, as opposed to other types of cultures. For example, here's another quick side note as a co-example of this. The Japanese for a very long time were mostly like their version of the boomers and the little bit of the older generations. A little bit of kind of started to slow down in millennials, but some of the Japanese favorite out of their own country cultural stuff actually is Anna Green Gables from Canada. It's a book series about this redheaded orphan girl. Hugely popular. 90% of visitors that Anna Green Gables, which is an actual physical location, it's over in PEI. It's PEI, right? I'm not mixing that up.
I'm not 100% sure, but
Oh, okay, well, whatever.
it's somewhere there. Yeah.
It takes place in PEI. It's this tiny little island. There's this little house there. They've actually painted this. It was a for the most part it was a fictional story, but it's was grounded in a lot of reality of that particular place in Canada. And like 90% of visitors to that place are Japanese. And they absolutely love that place, and they love the story, and they love the collection. This is one of these things where, again, it's like, yeah, it's not their main source. It's not like 3% or 5% of the total intake, but it is something that is very popular amongst those people. And it's the exact same situation here, where a lot of Chinese look at certain European countries, not England or France or Germany, but they look at other stuff like Poland. I think Transylvania is also kind of popular there too, and a couple other places where they look at that and they go, this is cool. Partially because I think it's something that's not, it's not been industrialized, to a ridiculous extent. So it's something that grabs their attention. So as we saw with the Witcher series, this obviously took them and made them really, really happy. So yeah, so again, huge, 4 really big things. Now, 5th one has come out since, but this was not commented on because this literally dropped like yesterday, so this wasn't part of the conversation. But just recently, CDPR put out a little short video to their Chinese fans, and in it, Marcin, one of the company's heads, basically in really decent Mandarin from what we kind of got, gave a small like pep talk speech, like hey, we're really excited for you guys to see this content, blah 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 blah, like all this, just the regular info that we've all heard about the game, but this time coming from him speaking Chinese directly to a Chinese audience.
That's the Lunar New Year video that we were talking about.
That's the Lunar New Year video that has just come out. And this is, whenever you have this, you will always get a massive positive feedback, because it's one of the company heads. It's not some spokesman. It's not some like PR person. This is one of the company's spokesmen who's gone out of his way to learn Mandarin to the point where he can speak it fairly fluently and do it in a way that is not seen as disrespectful or pandering. This is somebody who genuinely, when he Mad Queen was telling me that when he went to China for a long vacation during The Witcher 3, and that he took his whole family there and he toured around a lot. So he's quite a fan of a lot of their cultural stuff, and so this is going to go well. So that's another, I would, like I said, tacking it on as kind of as a 5th thing that's going to really give them positive feedback. So with all of these things together, we're looking at, for sure, like, unless there's something drastic happens, or if there's some tomfoolery going on, we will see this game approved for China. We will also see this game probably end up receiving minimal disruption as far as censorship goes, because again, they have a lot of big positives on that checklist that the central party has when going through whether or not games will be censored or not. There is some questions up in the air. Because we don't really know at all at this point. Nobody really does how extensive the coffee time goes, if you know what I mean. The coffee time. We don't really know how in depth or realistic that's going to be. We know that they're in there. We just don't know to what extent. We don't know if there's already an inbuilt button that you can just turn on and skip. we don't really know that right now. So, that's up in the air. We don't know for sure. That's cool. It's totally fine. So yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting. We're looking at this quite positively, I think, overall. Um, is basically being able to go nuts. Um, yeah, the whole Corona thing is kind of going crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Terror Case says, I've got to be honest, I don't think that this sucking up to China is a good thing. Well, I would agree, and
I,
I'll just
I,
bring.
I let me rephrase on that. It's the they're not sucking up to China by being anti-capitalism. Um, the dystopian future of mega corporations is not something that is strictly capitalistic. And in fact, you have a lot of like checks and balances as far as big companies go, to the point right now where Facebook and Google and a couple of these other companies are being threatened with massive control interventions because they're becoming too big, because they're not allowing, competition, and they're being dragged up in front of the a lot of, not just, it's not just the US, it's a whole bunch of other countries where they're looking at it and saying, yeah, you guys have too much power and we're going to knock that down. And that is an inbuilt checks and balances system that has been established in many current capitalistic countries. In most countries, you can't just create a hardcore monopoly and just run with it and start to, like, destroy all your competition. Now, again, this is something that we can argue about for ages, and we're not interested in getting into too much of the argument on this. But that's not an intentional thing.
Well, Cyberpunk. I mean, Cyberpunk has been Cyberpunk since
Yeah,
the
it's
'80s.
been that way
like
for
the
a
current
long time.
the current political climate. The
Mm-hmm.
political climate was different back then, and so
Yes.
CDPR has been very faithful to the original vision of Cyberpunk. They've been working with Mike Pondsmith. We've talked about that to death. The fact that I think it's I agree with Cy that, like, I don't think that CDPR was like, well, we've got to be critical of capitalism because of China or anything like that when they were developing the game. I think it just happens to fall into that, even though I view it more as a criticism of corporatism,
Yeah.
which and again, that's debates we can have elsewhere. But the fact that it's like, okay, this is what's happening in America in this world, and they don't have a good. America's not. Anything that makes America look bad basically is good with the Chinese government, it seems. And so
Yeah.
I don't think from
but
that
again,
aspect, but I think what Tara K was saying was, I think that he was talking more generally. Let us know in the chat, Tara, if you were you referring to CDPR, or were you referring to the games industry in general, which is something I think to be concerned about. And I'll just bring up this example of Total War 3 Kingdoms. It's being reported on Reddit. Now, this isn't brand new news, but it's something that's been reported on this week. And it's sort of new to us, but Total War 3 Kingdoms, even in the international version, is censoring certain words when you name units. So terms like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Tibet, and the name of their beloved leader, and Dali, as in like the Dalai Lama. These are words that have been reported as the game will not let you name your units with these words, even in the international version. So this is not restricted to China.
And they're doing this to suck up. And so here we have the example. This is a company that is sucking up to China. CDPR is not sucking up to China with their story. This was not something that was deliberately planned, created, and then curated to please the censors. This is different than what these other companies have been doing. What Blizzard's done. Blizzard's lore, Tracer is she's a lesbian in North America, Europe, and everywhere else. In China, she's not. So this is an extent where we're not, where you have significant controls coming in and playing at these things for the Chinese censorship versus like what everybody else gets, and in some cases this is now starting to work backwards and affect the game's international release, like you have with this Total War thing. So it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem, and I definitely agree that there's more than one faction that needs needs public attention. I've spoken extensively on the whole China and Uyghur thing, and or Hong Kong and Uyghur thing, that these things are not acceptable. We don't want to get too political here, but suffice it to say that this is not CDPR catering to them. This is just so happens to fall in line that there's many potential positives that can be seen out of this. So again, it's not a perfect system, and hasn't been official. This is a contact from a contact that is direct from that deals directly with this kind of stuff. So you can take this information and know that I've done my research on it, and I've spoken with these people, and it seems quite clear that this is the direction that we're moving in, and that it fits up pretty well with what we know publicly anyways. So if the shoe fits, I think we can wear it in this particular case. And let me just quickly talk about, CDPR has made it quite clear that the game is going to cover political issues. What I think some people don't realize, or how some people have kind of taken that, is they're going, oh, you're going to cover current day political issues. No, that's not what they're doing. Well, I mean, in a sense, yeah, they're when they're talking about poverty, I guess you can say that's a current political issue, right? But they're not going to be talking about any known political figures and or like current day political movements, right? That's from that you could take out of a news clipping from this morning. They're not doing that. And that is what a bunch of people want them to do. A bunch of people want them to name a particular politician and say, this person's evil and we have to destroy them. It's like, even though they're in an alternate reality future where, I mean, it starts way back in like the 60s. Like, I think the time split off is even earlier than that in the cyberpunk future. It's like expecting the next Fallout game to mention all the current political stuff that we're having today, even though again that time split off was based in the 1940s. It's like there's no correlation to reality here at all, and it's not political in that way. It's political in the sense of like mega corporations versus poor people, and
you're discussing themes, discussing issues, discussing topics.
It's a theme. Yeah, it's a theme of a thing. They're not pulling up news from today, because and before you say that's ridiculous, nobody wants that. No, there's people who argue quite considerably. It's like, well, why didn't you mention this political person in your game and make them out to be the main villain? It's like, because our games are in alternate realities of current timeline. Why would you want us to do this? Because I want you to do that, because I want you to validate my opinion. That's what a lot of people are, that's unfortunately what a lot of people are saying basically today, and in our current climate, which is why some people are really annoyed at this. So yeah, this is not something that CDPR is doing. It's not something that they're engaging in.
This is a random thought, but how insecure are you about your opinion if you need your pop culture to validate it? Mm-hmm. Something to think about. Anyway, so Tara K clarified here that he was talking more about the sucking up with the Chinese New Year's video, that kind of a thing. I think that for me, I mean, you're obviously free to have your whatever opinion you have on that. For me, I don't have a problem with them wanting to say to the Chinese people, like, hey, we've got this awesome game, we want you to buy it. You make it look appealing. They're going to the Taipei game show. They're trying to make it appealing to people who live there. They're trying to be culturally relevant for them. I don't have a problem with that. It's marketing. It's just what they do. I have a problem with it when they're, if they were to start corrupting their initial vision for the game or putting undue censorship in. I don't even have a problem with it. Like if they legally have to remove certain things in order to distribute the game in China, I don't have a problem with them doing that as long as they're doing that just in China and not everywhere. As long as they're.
I need to point this out. They have routinely celebrated Valentine's Day, which is one of these holidays that is not celebrated by the whole world. It's in recent years it has been growing in its popularity worldwide. More and more people are celebrating it. They're like in one country that I'm not going to mention because it's kind of a I don't know what do you want to call it, a barrel of black powder.
That was very poor wording.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm
But
trying.
a powder keg. You're trying to say it's a powder keg. Yeah.
That this is I don't even want to mention it. However, it was like straight out banned like 20, 30 years ago, and now it's starting to slowly creep in to become more. It's been a cultural phenomenon that has been happening there since 2006. So it is. So it's one of these days where again it's not been popular in a lot of different countries, and yet they go out of their way here. So I would say that basically you as a company basically you're going to look at like your top 10 holidays every year worldwide. Obviously that list is going to be different for like local places like 4th of July, huge in the United States. Nobody else really does anything about it at all.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, anyway, whatever it could be that it just kind of coincided with the Lunar New Year. And so they were like, okay, let's make a happy Lunar New Year. We're going to, Taipei. So let's do that. We do get little tidbits from them every now and then. Not a video, not a special. We didn't get a special video for Christmas, I don't think, but they did put out Christmas card graphics, that kind of a thing. Anyway, I mean, it doesn't feel at this point that they're giving a special effort or bending in any special way to China. Doesn't seem that way to me. You're free to disagree. But we'll see what happens. I think it's sort of situational, personally. But anyway, all right. Any final words on that?
No, that's basically it.
Neon Arcade points out a good point here too. Marcin Nowinsky says he wants cdpr games to be popular in China. The man lived there and was fond of China, so he does have a personal connection with China. And in general, we criticize the Chinese government. We definitely don't have a problem with the Chinese people. We want them to be free to play all of the bloody, gory video games they want. We wish they were allowed to do so.
We want everybody to be generally happy with this game and help grow the community. Doesn't mean that we're fanboys or whatever. It just means that we're interested in we're interested in the community growth. So and we're interested in game companies coming to the floor that actually care about their gamers and their games and their products as a whole, instead of some of these other absolute garbage companies. So yeah, today Warcraft 3 Reforged came out. They lied about pretty much everything. Also, the game is completely broken right now. Can't get past the first tutorial mission. Go into the tutorial mission, instant defeat.
What did they lie about?
So they showed a whole bunch of trailers showing like new cutscenes, and they showed these really dynamic, really cool cutscenes with new models and a whole bunch of stuff. Looked really good, really awesome. Today, people are loading up the game, watching those cutscenes. There's no cutscene. It's just two units on the field talking back and forth to each other with subtitles.
Notional says, maybe you need a phone for the intro mission.
Yeah.
As we all know,
it's-
Blizzard.
it's
Sib's
bad.
talking about Warcraft 3, Danny Boy.
Warcraft 3 Reforged. It came out
Reforged. Yeah.
yesterday or today or whatever it was.
So maybe don't check out
absolute-
Warcraft 3 quite yet.
It's an absolute train wreck. They lied on pretty much everything. They promised a full redo of all the units. Turns out only about half of the units are done. A bunch of the other units are still in their old 20-year-old versions of themselves. And so you got these like blocky, like 30 polygon characters that are standing right beside characters that are made with 5,000 polygons. It's like, okay, this doesn't look ham-fisted and bent out of shape at all. And this was announced 2 years ago. So for 2 years they've been working on this, and apparently they've converted 80% of the things. They claim that they were going to be adding a whole bunch of functions that none of them are working as of right now. You can't invite friends to games. You can't form multiplayer games at all currently. There's no functionality with the with a whole bunch of these other systems that were promised. It's an absolute cop out, and this coming from a company who has showed clearly over the they just had just earlier this week. Actually, sorry, it was last week. Just last week, newest patch came out with the newest raid. Everybody was expecting this build up of 15 years in World of Warcraft to come to this amazing cinematic story, and we got a 30-second clip. 30 seconds of a frankly a rip-off of a stuff. It was basically the Two Towers ending, or Return of the King ending. It was the Return of the King ending. You killed the boss, and they shot him with a giant laser beam, which has been done in the WoW world before, being shot from a necklace, which again has been done in that world before. This isn't even new stuff. This is just rehashed content, rehashed everything. They laser beamed the dude, and then a tower exploded and crumbled, almost in the exact same way that the Sauron's eye exploded. And then a whole city was phased out from existence. And in something where the last time it was like a 2.5-3 minute video. That was just a couple of patches ago. And now we have a 30-second clip that they posted up to their YouTube channel, and it got so downvoted that they put it on private. They privated the friggin' video. Or they delisted the video, so you can't find you have to have the link in order to go to the link, and every comment is just trashing it. And right now they're getting flamed on Twitter because Warcraft 3 utter failure from launching this, from a company who fired 800 people last year after having one of their biggest years ever financially. This from a company that doesn't pay taxes to any country that they sell their content in. They pay zero taxes. They have so many tax loopholes that they get money from the government every year instead of paying into the pot. So again, if you're this is the kind of stuff that we don't want CDPR to become. Because this is an utter joke. EA with their whole Battlefront thing, it's just all of this stuff is just such a joke. Mm-hmm. It's such a joke right now.
Absolutely, and a bit of an update on the Activision Blizzard story. This is a week or two old now, but we didn't cover it because we were busy with other other things to talk about, but a lot of those jobs that Activision Blizzard cut, they are now reposting. They are rehiring for them at much lower salaries.
They're rehiring those same positions with lower salary and more, like there's more stuff for you to do. You
Talk
have to
about
do
a
more.
slap in the face to the people who
Yeah.
lost their jobs.
And again, from a company who had enough money to they rehired somebody that they had hired before at a $30 million like signing bonus, and they handed another dude who walked out of the company after have basically causing a lot of issues. They paid him a bunch of money. Their like all of their old like core team members that helped build the company have basically retired or moved on after basically being forced out of the company by the Activision wing. Like Blizzard used to be a great company. Now they're a shell of an old company, and pretty much everybody who was, had some kind of an input no longer has that input. It's an absolute joke. And so this is why we encourage and give positivity to why we're giving positivity to CDPR, because this is something that we want to encourage. Because yeah, it's fine to like call out negativity and to be negative on this stuff and to call it out, but if you're not doing something to help change that, then I mean, it's like everybody who complains about yeah, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah,
it's like
you gotta
it's like if you're
promote
angry
the
about pollution, go plant a couple of trees. Like that really helps. Like go help, like do something like that if you're really that angry, or you just sit on the corner in your in your running SUV drinking a frappuccino, screaming about the environment. It's like, or you could go do something to help. And this is our theory on it. We're not getting after anybody for what they think. What we're saying is like if you're gonna complain, which is what we're doing, Ash and I, if we're complaining about the current environment of the games industry, then we find other game companies that are doing things right, and we give them props and we give them support, and we pull the community around them, which leads us into the next story, which is Torchlight.
right.
Yes.
Now you have all the info on this, but Torchlight 3, or sorry, Torchlight. The devs of this game have made a massive course correction.
Yeah.
They
so
were
this
making, I know very little about this franchise, but apparently, if I understand
like
correctly, it was their next game. They were going to be taking it in a free to play direction, but they have axed that, and they're now making just a premium game that you buy it and you play it.
Yeah. So it was originally coming out as a free to play type game with several different stores. So right when you hear that, you're like, oh no,
Multiple stores in a
no.
game. That's it's getting
so you
ridiculous,
had
man.
so you had your microtransaction store for your cosmetics. You had your microtransaction store for your boosters and bonuses, and then you had a Fortnite style Game Pass that was a monthly Game Pass, which we're working on another story from another game here, which is targeted at children. They have a Game Pass too. The Game Pass doesn't last. You buy the Game Pass and you get the Game Pass. The Game Pass does not cover the full length of the time that particular Game Pass is up. Fortnite, you buy the Game Pass, it lasts like a month or two, whatever it is, and you have access to the Game Pass through the whole time period that the Game Pass is up and alive. No, not anymore, my friends. Not anymore. No, on this new game, which isn't Torchlight. I'm taking a very quick sidestep story because we're going to be reporting on this one sometime soon. In this new one, you have to up your subscription to the Game Pass every week. Every week. And you are limited in how much you can gain access on the Game Pass unless you're subbed to it multiple times a week. This is also a game that's aimed at children that that has an auto click button that makes you buy a $7 pack every day. Every day, an auto click button that takes you right to a $7 purchase every day.
When we
So
expose this game and the company behind it, you are going to be
Yeah.
appalled. And we're working on this. This is something that Cybe's digging heavily into. We will be doing an expose on of some sort. But yeah, no, it's getting ridiculous. It's getting absurd. So it's great to hear that, you know, some companies are, and apparently it was with Torchlight, player
just
feedback
as bad.
that they listened to and were like, okay, we'd better take it in a different direction.
Now
Our fans are going to turn on us.
Yeah, and they've done this despite the fact that this was Perfect World who had gotten involved in this. Perfect World is one of the worst companies out there. Like they're the ones who created a lot of this garbage from the get-go. Like they were doing this they were doing this kind of stuff well before EA picked up on this. So this is some pretty like terrible stuff and some pretty just horrendous, like just it's terrible. Leaves a terrible taste in my mouth. But thankfully, the devs who are some old devs from, you know, old Diablo, from Torchlight 1 and 2, they basically said, no, we've gotten the feedback. This game is going to bomb. Not only is this game going to bomb, we're going to lose our entire fan base. So they put out a patch that effectively changed it. It used to be called Fortnite Frontiers, and it is now called Fortnite 3. Sorry, not Fortnite 3. Oh, good. Too much stuff on the brain. It's now called Torchlight. Went from Torchlight Frontiers to Torchlight 3. Oh, my head. So Torchlight 3 is now a thing. It is a buy-to-play. So you buy the game, and that's it. There are no longer, there's not even a cosmetic store. All cosmetics are obtainable in-game. And with like awards and achievements and all kinds of other stuff. We've heard rumor that they're going to be, because Torchlight 1 and 2 really embraced the modding community, and that actually helped them, like, you know, sustain themselves. So they're now making that more of a thing, that they're going to be, you know, that the game is now, because it's not being like, you know, it's not every aspect of it is being controlled like that with the whole like microtransaction store thing. This makes the game more open to modding, especially like visual modding and other stuff like that, which is a really popular thing. And I have to point out that one of the biggest chunks of losses that Warcraft had, World of Warcraft had in this latest expansion, was when they killed off player modding. Like player side visual modding. It's been something that's been there from the game's initial release, and apparently one day, you know, we talked about this when it happened. Apparently one day they basically woke up and said, "Hey, we're going to kill all player modding. Like anybody who's modding their characters, we're just going to ban them." So they started to ban people, and they just started to ban them that day, and they were giving them like 1,000-year bans and all this stuff, like just really garbage stuff. And they were going, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. And they thought they were going to be banning like 10,000 people. The first 5% of their ban list, they had banned almost about, they had banned like 100,000 accounts. So they quickly realized that if they had continued on with this ban, that they would end up banning about 60 to 70% of their population that are currently playing the game.
Not a good idea.
Woo, baby!
And, you know, it just comes down to give your customers what they actually want. It's if anything over the past few years has taught us, it's that, you know, give your customers what they want. That's how you succeed. That's how you have good relationships with your player base. Mm-hmm. That's how you get a good reputation. It's incredible what, instead of trying to tell people what they want and that they must buy it, no, find out what they actually want and provide it for them. That's how you make money. That's how you get big. And ironically, that is how these companies got big. I just used the word ironically very wrong. Don't slap me, Time Bean. But anyway, my point is, these companies, that's how they got big, is by providing a product that people wanted. And now they're turning around companies like Blizzard and saying, no, we're going to tell you what you want. You know, you want what we've made. This is what you want. You think you want something else, but you don't want it. Don't you have phones? And then they wonder why why they get wind up on lists of like the most terrible companies in America and that kind of thing, and why they have such bad PR. Along this line, the same line though, there's been questions about whether or not Doom Eternal will have microtransactions, and this question has been cleared up by the creative director of the game, Hugo Martin, who basically says no. Here's his full statement that was given via a PM to someone who asked him. He says, no store, nothing you can unlock in Eternal with XP has anything to do with player abilities or content that would impact the game in any way. The only thing you can unlock with XP is cosmetics. They have no impact on gameplay. They just look cool. Eternal is a $60 game, not a free-to-play game or a mobile game. We are giving you a complete experience with no store, just like you'd expect. So it's kind of a roundabout way of saying, no, there's no microtransactions. The only real unlockable things that you can do with points is through XP you can unlock cosmetics, but there's a different mechanic for how you upgrade your weapons and equipment, that kind of a thing, and none of it is purchasable. So according to his statement, no store. Cosmetics are optional. If you want to grind some XP and get some cool cosmetics, that's fine. But even like, I find it curious that he focuses on the XP, because the concern about XP is usually when you're in a when you're in games as a service scenario and they force you to the XP gathering to be a grind, but then they offer like XP boosts for sale, that kind of a thing. But that's not even a factor here, so I'm curious the whole focus on XP. But I guess his point was that's the only real points to unlock stuff that you have is just XP. So Doom Eternal, premium game, no microtransactions, according to this statement from Hugo Martin, creative director.
Yeah, and some people really freaked out on this, and I can't really blame them because this is the current state of the industry, right? They saw a menu for picking cosmetics and they freaked out. And again, I can't blame them because this is the current state of things. This is the current state of 76. However, we've been saying it for a while that we have it on decent authority that 76 is not this is not Bethesda, the entire, this isn't Bethesda and ZeniMax's new stance on their games. This is just one new person who's come into the company, who's basically demanding this stuff, and this whole exercise has actually been proving the opposite, right? Now, of course, we did have some of this stuff in Wolfenstein Youngblood. I was really disappointed with that game, despite the fact that I couldn't play it to begin with. I was just really disappointed with that title, period, because they had so much potential with that, and they just threw it out the window. It's so sad. So sad. But yeah,
I watched some of the cutscenes on YouTube. I was like, oh my god, I cannot sit through this. They're so badly written.
But again, it's like they're, so yeah, people freaked out a little bit, but that was okay. It was fine because, as it turns out, not in the game. So we will definitely hold them to that. But yeah, I can see how people made that mistake, and I don't blame them for making that.
Yeah,
I have heard. I don't even blame any of the journalists out there, because again, I'm pretty hard on journalists a lot of the time because they don't really fact check things. In this, they were running off of what they could see, and yeah, some people could make that assumption, right? They saw a currency, they saw a store, or what looked like a store. Turns out it's just experience that you get in game, and you just buy whatever you want.
So that's why he was making a point of explaining what the XP was all about. It's because
Yes,
someone had
yeah.
seen a screenshot of
Yeah, there was this
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha,
screenshot
gotcha,
leaked, and it looked like it was a microtransaction store. And again, it's like that needed to be cleared up, and I'm so glad that they came out and cleared it up as they did, because then that's really calmed us down, whereas people could have been freaking out about it. So
Yeah.
to answer the question that's building in the chat, no, I am not typically a fan of like Bluetooth stuff. So the body just in general has an ability to deflect a lot of like generalized signals and stuff like that. It's just like any other like thing, right? Radiation's bad for us, that kind of stuff. But I use Wi-Fi in the house because Wi-Fi is everywhere anyways. Just because you turn off your router in your home doesn't mean that you've lowered the amount of Wi-Fi that you're being exposed to. Generally speaking, that's pretty common. So I don't freak out by that, but I don't use the earbuds, the wireless earbuds, because those things have a little microwave receiver pointed at the other one, and they're beaming this direct little laser beam of Wi-Fi. And I say laser beam, it's not a laser beam, obviously. It's a confined beam signal that's going from one earphone to the other one through about the 3 inches through your head. It's just not healthy, and time being knows this is not something that is healthy at all. This is something that is like
And
potentially very dangerous.
and they look idiotic, as Time Bean says. Is
Yes,
your
and
head
they
only
look
3
pretty
inches
idiotic.
wide?
No, that's when I'm talking about. The earphones go into your ear,
Yeah.
and then they're channeling that from in your ear to the other side of your other inner ear. That's not actually that far. That's not like a foot of space.
How
That's like
far do you jam those things in there? Well, anyway. Anyway, and I won't even. Whenever I'm talking to someone on my cell phone, I use speaker and I hold it in front of me. I don't put it up to my head usually, because
Yeah.
I don't want that radiation pumping right into my brain. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. Anyway.
It's like limit that stuff as much as you can.
Yeah, it is everywhere, and honestly, we're exposed to radiation from the sun and from outer space. Most of it gets filtered out by the atmosphere, but there is radiation that we're exposed to all the time anyway. So you can't completely remove it from
Now,
your life.
however, this is an important topic that, and we just don't know it yet. But people start discovering it about 40 years from now. But turns out, after spending 50 years being exposed to constant Wi-Fi, when you about 50 years after the process has begun, you turn into a zombie. So yeah, that'll be fun in about 40 years ish. So yeah,
But there will be no one left to fight the zombies. So it'll just be a planet of the zombies.
Yeah.
Because Wi-Fi is literally everywhere, except it'll be the Amish and the the tribes we haven't discovered yet who have no technology. They'll be the only ones left standing as we kill ourselves with our own technology. All right, you're listening to the Augmented Reality podcast, and after that discussion, you might be wondering why the hell you're listening, but we typically talk about lots of gaming stuff and all the things we love to talk about. And if you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. Going to be doing some house cleaning there soon, figuring out how to better arrange the chat channels. I think making another memes room for off-topic memes, things like that. Just doing a little housekeeping to make it run just a little more efficiently, a little better. If you have any suggestions about how we can do that, please let us know on the server, in content requests, or you can DM us. Our DMs are open. The people typically, to date, we haven't gotten spammed or harassed too much, so we've left our DMs open, and hopefully we can do that for a long time. But you can talk to us there. You can talk to lots of other Triple S community members, stay up to date about the things we love to talk about. And what we're doing here at the Triple S League, lots of news gets posted there. A lot of the things we talk about on the podcast come from our content requests channel there. So yeah, join up there if you haven't already, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. Funny story here, speaking of companies going in odd different directions. This is, not a negative one like what we were talking about with Activision Blizzard before, but Atari is looking at getting into the hotel business. Bizarrely, Atari gaming themed hotels might be a thing in the future. And here's a statement from the company from their announcement. So Atari, a trailblazer in the gaming industry, is pioneering an exciting new concept, a unique lodging experience combining the iconic brand with a one-of-a-kind video game-themed destination. Atari Hotels level up hotel entertainment with fully immersive experiences for every age and gaming ability, including the latest in VR and AR. Select hotels will also feature state-of-the-art venues and studios to accommodate esports events. So, interesting.
This is now, I say this is weird. However, this is also really smart. This is what I've been saying that a lot of companies need to do to stay valid. And I'm looking at publishers here. Like, seriously, publishers, you guys should be breaking the ground on this kind of stuff. Going into different areas, not the gaming companies, but you as the publisher. Because publishing is slowly becoming unneeded. It used to be that publishers stepped forward and offered you a ton of stuff to help you with physical distribution, a whole bunch of other things, also to get you up onto the latest like sales tactics and figures, and then they'd also fund you from the get-go. Well, if you are an indie developer who's cash flowed your production with the use of Kickstarter and some other things, and you're launching on Steam and the Microsoft Store, guess how much use a publisher is to you? 0. So and this is why we have these publishers Activision's pretty much a publisher, how they've walked in and basically ruined Bethesda. EA has ruined Blizzard, not Bethesda, Blizzard. How EA has walked in and ruined BioWare. Again, there's too many B's in these companies. Guys, name your company something starting with a B.
There are other letters. There are other letters.
There are other letters in the alphabet, for crying out loud. And they did that with BioWare. And how many other companies have been ruined by a publisher who's just garbage, just absolute garbage. It's grow the hell up. And start to look into something new, seriously. If I sometimes look back and I think, if Blockbuster had been the one to pioneer the Netflix concept, they'd still be around today as a huge company, and they'd probably still have a lot of physical stores as well. They probably would have found some way to they probably would have ended up selling a lot of merch, I'm going to Blockbuster not to grab a movie, but to grab some towels with a insignia, some T-shirts of my latest favorite movie, and some presents for family because of the the Lego movie or something that's come out, right? That's the kind of stuff that I think that they would have been doing now. But no, they're too stupid and too arrogant and too pompous and too we took advantage of technology to drown out our competitors, and now look at them getting trounced by technology by their competitors. It's like the process is really stupid.
Yeah, companies have to adapt in order to survive. It's the ones that adapt. I mean, Netflix, of course, started as they would deliver physical DVDs to you, and then they went into online streaming. And, if they had stuck with their old model, then they'd be completely irrelevant. I mean, you could argue they are becoming irrelevant, but anyway. Yeah. Video game hotels might be a thing.
Might be a thing. Might be a good...
Game Notes asks, can I live there? And then Tara K chiming in with the hot take. Oh yeah, can't wait to stay at the EA hotels that not only charge you to stay per night, but then also charge you per hour on top of that, or only give you a bed if you get the season pass. I was thinking, yeah, EA hotels, or these other companies, what kinds of microtransactions? Free to stay hotel.
Right?
It's only $50 each time you want to unlock your room.
It's absolutely hilarious. Yeah, I think this is really funny.
Breakfast DLC, bathroom DLC. Yeah, right.
And I was
I
just
could just see that. I could just see. Please purchase the full. Please purchase full plumbing DLC. You swipe your credit card and the bathroom descends from the ceiling. I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Currently downloading.
So no, I think yeah, I mean it's just so funny. It's just so funny.
Toilet flushing microtransaction. Yeah. Oh man, I love our chat. The CD Projekt Hotel. You just pay to stay there and have an excellent experience. I think it's probably what'll happen. I'm trying to think of another joke on top of that, but my germ riddled brain is not working right now. Yeah. So we also then we're going to talk about there were some rumors about Resident Evil 8 that have leaked on Twitter. Not sure what the source is, but Saib, you said you were going to talk about it if you could verify something, or if you heard back from a contact of yours. So what have you discovered?
Basically, that the game is being worked on. It's been worked on for a while.
It's hardly news, but yeah.
It's like it looks like they're gonna stick with first person only, which is weird. Because I mean, Resident Evil hasn't been it was never really a first person game, and a lot of the fear comes from the ambience that they get through the third person. It's just a little different, and they since the new generation they basically stuck with the whole FPS thing, and you became more of like a hero instead of like watching the story and following it and that kind of stuff. So it's like so it kind of works, whatever. As far as the info goes on it, I can't confirm whether or not it's this whole werewolf thing is going to become an actual thing. It's looking a little weird to have werewolves in it. I mean, it sort of fits, right? It's like horror motifs, right? Vampires, werewolves, and undead. It's kind of like it's kind of like your trinity of stuff there. So I think at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if that's a thing. They need something to kind of like mix up the series, and kind of a werewolfy thing could work. So yeah, I mean, maybe, I guess it depends, but wouldn't necessarily be too shocked. As far as like all the other rumors circulating about it, it's really up in the air, and I wouldn't really necessarily, especially with the werewolf thing, I wouldn't take any of this stuff as like proof positive. Capcom is notorious for basically running with crazy, ridiculous ideas and then kind of like, settling on stuff. A lot of Japanese developers do this, where they'll shoot for the moon, or they'll try really bizarre concepts at the time, and then they'll find a solution for it. So it kind of works that way. And by the way, I want to throw this in here because it really kind of fits. Did you all know that that there's a bio facility in the area that's been affected by the coronavirus there's a bio facility where they do contract work with the government, which means obviously, well, I mean, not obviously, but it's kind of like, conspiratorial hat. They kind of do like work for the military, so weaponizing viruses, that kind of thing. Did you know that they have that company has a little icon symbol thing, like their company logo? It's basically the Umbrella Corporation from Resident Evil. The colors are different, but other than the colors being different, it's the exact same thing. Now, it doesn't say Umbrella Agency, or anything about Umbrella, but it's clearly basically the exact same thing. It's so hilarious. It's so funny that this is going on. It's sad. I mean, it's sad that so many people are dying from this thing, but still, it's absolutely mental. It's absolutely mental that this is going on right now.
Yeah, and that's apparently it's apparently really close to where the outbreak started.
Yeah.
So
and
there's a lot of tinfoil hat stuff being spent.
Yeah. Lots of conspiracy theories on that we don't want to dive into. But yeah. So as far as Resident Evil 8, like right now, it's kind of like rumor season. So don't take anything with a necessarily like a take everything with a grain of salt. Don't take anything as gospel on this yet. Partially because I kind of doubt, excuse me, I kind of doubt that we're going to see something concrete on this until probably like late this summer or even like next year. This is a title that I think is going to come out probably in the first year of the new consoles, so we're talking like sometime 2021 at the earliest. And yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I don't want to, like, there's things I've heard a lot of things. I've heard a lot of rumors. Some stuff that's been what some people have heard. Otherwise, I've heard of things that nobody else has heard or that nobody else is talking about. And at this point, it's kind of like, I think they're just working on things. It's up in the air, and I don't think that they have like I don't even know if they have a concrete vision yet. So, yeah.
All right. We know what's going to be included in the CD Projekt Hotel now. Free naked Geralt in the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
That comes to us from Notional. You should get on that. And Time Bean is incredibly excited about it, especially if Geralt is Henry Cavill, apparently.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't.
Is there an option to swap him out for like Yennefer instead or something like that? Just curious. I'm asking for a friend. All right, so I think that's the show for today. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. It's been a fun time, entertaining conversation in the chat as always. Definitely, like I said, join our Discord server if you want to keep the conversation going. Friday, we'll be back with our review of Episode 2 of Star Trek Picard, so you don't want to miss that. It's going to take place at the same time that the podcast happens Wednesday, but on Friday. And the plan is to keep going with that, pretty much every Friday for the next while the series is in its initial run, because we're really enjoying the show, and a number of you are Star Trek fans too, so yeah, something new we're trying. Lots of our regular content to come as well, but please do slam that like button if you appreciate this content. We really appreciate that. Before you leave, hit that button, and also subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be notified when we go live or when we put a video up. In theory, it's supposed to notify you. We don't know if it actually does or not. We don't know how anything works on YouTube or if anything works, but that's the system we have. I want to extend a special thank you to our Patreon supporters and channel members who help to make this content possible. Our big damn heroes on Patreon, Josh, Robin, and our 2 anonymous supporters over there. Thank you all so much. And our channel members, Jason Cropper, Mr. Pazdzernik, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, and Terror K. Don't forget to like, comment, and sub. I already said that. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, or any of the other platforms this podcast goes out to, we appreciate your interactions on those platforms as well. And don't forget, you can join the live show on Wednesdays and Saturdays, where you can interact with other listeners as well as us and be a part of the hilarious discussions that take place in the chat. See the Discord server for the exact time and schedule, and we'll see you there. The Augmented Reality podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyb, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you again very soon.